the things that Joel's singing about in that song, like you referred to with the anxiety and the drinking. When I ended up getting sober, like this was one of the songs that kind of kept me grounded, and like knowing where he's at now and where he came from really helped.
Welcome to the Emo Social Club. My name is Brian. We're back with more album reviews, nostalgic reviews, records we've heard, records we love, records we're listening to the first time. On today's episode, we're talking about Let the Ocean Take You by the Amity Affliction. This is a record that was recommended by my guest today, Matt Bunting. Welcome to the Emo Social Club.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Dude, this has been a long time coming to have you on, long time coming to have a conversation with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what your background is.
My background in music, so I originally got into rock music from my parents. They listened to classic rock and like 90s alternative music. And I remember back in the day listening to the radio and doing like the tape recordings where you would like wait for your favorite song to come on and like get it on tape. So I've been obsessed with music like my entire life from when I was a kid, and then mixtape with CDs and stuff like that. I got into alternative music like Green Day and stuff like that growing up. And then I took a long break from listening to rock music and alternative music because through like TRL and things like that, I started listening to like Eminem and hip hop and went down a long road of like being obsessed with hip hop. And around 2002 or 2003, I had some friends show me emo or like metalcore music, and like just instantly was hooked on that, going back to my old rock days. So ever since then, 100% completely obsessed with metalcore and scene music and, you know, emo, like the Emo Social Club. So I absolutely love it. I love it so much that I started like making content about it and like reaching out to people like you and like having conversations about it. And it's my life now and I love it so much.
Yeah, I think we originally started chatting through TikTok. And it really was like one of those things where I'm just like seeing somebody who is talking about music that I know and the music I care about. And the biggest thing is that, and we have another episode coming after this, but you are somebody who is like involving yourself in the conversation, and like you're starting conversations and you're continuing the conversations in other people's comments. And I was like, dude, this guy, like, he knows his shit. He's passionate. He cares about it. And he, like, wants to chat about it. And I'm like, that's the whole thing. That's the whole goal of, like, what we're doing here.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, man. I feel the same way. One of my favorite parts about all of this is the conversation about it. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite bands today, my favorite records. And you said that, you know, you wanted to learn more about the band and you were trying to get into it. And my favorite thing is just sharing with people, sharing that passion with them. And like, what's your opinion on it? What's your take on this? There's new drama in the scene. Like, what do you guys think? I love the conversation part of it. It's the most fun part, like you're saying.
Yeah, it truly is. And I know we both get like a lot of the the people who are mad at what we say about it, but you know, fuck it.
Yeah.
Who cares? Just because we're right doesn't mean that you have to be angry at us. So today we're talking about the Amity Affliction's Let the Ocean Take Me. This is the first time I've ever listened to this record. I've known this band, like I've been aware of the Amity Affliction for a long time. I've been around the scene for a long time. But you know, this is me getting acquainted with it. So I'll take us through a little bit of background. You can add any information you know, because you obviously are an expert on this band way more than me. I just, you know, I went down a few holes of reviews and interviews and all that. Yeah. So this album was released on June 6th, 2014 via Roadrunner Records. It became the Amity Affliction's second consecutive #1 ARIA charting album, solidifying their status as Australian metalcore leaders. Produced by Will Putney, who also produced Every Time I Die and The Ghost Inside, the record refined their signature blend of melodic choruses, crushing breakdowns, and synth-augmented atmosphere while driving deeper into mental health themes.
The Amity is huge about the mental health thing, like from the origins of the band and how they kind of got started dealing with the loss of some of their friends and substance abuse and things like that. They've always been big on the mental health part. And that reverberates all throughout this record, which obviously you're aware of now. And that's one of my favorite things about them because they really are. It's post-hardcore metalcore, but emo at the end of the day. It's emotional.
Oh, yeah. Frontman Joel Birch has framed the album as a battle cry against depression, with its title serving as a metaphor for surrendering to, but ultimately surviving emotional turmoil. In an interview, he said the ocean is depression. It's vast, it's terrifying, and it can pull you under. But this album isn't about drowning. It's about fighting to stay afloat. Also, like looking at all of this, like these details in these interviews, I was like, this is sort of the thing with a lot of these records that we listen to is like, this saved my life. This brought me back from the brink. This was exactly what I needed to hear at the exact moment I needed to hear it. And there's so much on this that is like, that's what this is about. And I think that like having that metaphor in mind helped me like listen to this record and go, okay, I know what it's going to be about. And, you know, I'm not listening to it going, okay, like a little bit like on the nose and all that. It's like, no, they knew what they were setting out to do, and they created that as like the premise, the mission statement, all that. So yeah, this helped me to get into that mindset too, going into it.
You're going to see a theme with the band too when it comes to whether it be oceans or like bodies of water. They use that as a huge metaphor when it comes to like swimming or drowning or like saving yourself, like you said. And so it's one of my other favorite parts of them.
It brought me back to like those memes where it's like metalcore bands singing about undertow or
They probably pioneered that, or the original ones of that.
Yeah, some key tracks that reflect that. Pittsburgh is inspired by a panic attack that Joel suffered on Warped Tour, I believe. The song's opening lines, "I've been searching for an exit, but I'm lost inside my head," became an anthem for fans. And he called it the moment he realized that he needed help. "Don't Lean on Me" addresses the guilt of failing as a support system while battling personal demons. And "The Way Down" explicitly tackles ideation. And it has a very big cathartic live reception for that one, I guess.
Oh,
as a band that I've never seen live, I don't think. I feel like they've like this is one of those bands that I recognize from being on a lot of tour flyers, and then I might have shown up later, or there was like a big metal like big touring festival sort of thing where it's like, oh, they're one of the bands that's on it, and I'm like, I've been to that show, I know that band exists, I don't think I saw them.
It's time to correct that.
Apparently, and you'll have to like help me a little bit because looking at it, you know, when you look at it, it's like none of the original members are still in this band. It's like a whole new crowd.
I saw that too.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that until I was reading about them too, and I was like, wait, really?
Yeah, so you'll have to help me with like Joel, the screamer, is still in the band. The clean vocalist Aaron Stringer is no longer in the band, but he sings the clean melodies on this.
Yeah. It was only recently, like within the past year, that Aaron left the band, and he was, like you said, one of the original members who formed with some other guys that he knew in high school, I believe, and then Joel joined a little bit later. So Joel's been around a long time. I didn't realize that he wasn't an original member till recently.
Yeah, and Joel is, from what I can understand, the main lyricist, the main person who, you know, these are, when we talk about the personal stories and the mental health journey that goes on in this record, it is from Joel's perspective and about his experiences.
Yeah, that's, to my knowledge too, Joel Birch is like the obviously the dirty vocalist and like writes all of the lyrics and has a huge hand in, you know, framing the band around that mental health part of it, especially because when you dig into the band a little bit deeper, Joel has had his struggles with alcohol in the past, leading to the song Pittsburgh and that anxiety. And then getting sober, and like the band kind of follows a projection of like how his life in a way has gone and their experiences through that.
I always find it interesting when there is like a double vocal situation and one lyricist, right? Like I think this about like Fall Out Boy too, where it's like, okay, Pete's writing all the lyrics and then Patrick has to like add his little on it, but he isn't necessarily coming from a place where he's had the experience. So it was kind of me understanding like, okay, Aaron is singing these lyrics and he, you know, obviously you can understand and empathize with the experience, but also like this is a very personal story for the other guy in the band who is mainly,
I never thought about that.
It's always interesting to me when someone else is like a lyricist, but it is a very personal thing. It's not like, you know, I just saw Chiodos recently and I'm like, a lot of the lyrics are Shakespeare. And like, while it might be related to your experience, it might not be like, these are direct stories that happen to me, or these are things that I want to address that happen in my life. And I will speak honestly and openly about it. It's like, nah, man,
Yeah.
that's Billy Bard, you know, that's the guy from the 1700s or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, I don't have to talk about my own experience. I can sort of put it into this metaphor. And this record is very like, this is me. This is me completely opening myself to an audience.
Imagine writing lyrics for something that are like so emotional and so dealing with all of these big things we're talking about, and then handing them off to someone to sing and being like, this is where you should add inflection. This is the part where I was feeling really upset about this thing that you need to add an emphasis to. That creates that teamwork within the band and like probably, you know, in a way like linked them deeper than you could ever be. And like, obviously they've split up recently, but that kept them together for so long, singing about the same themes, which is interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about the reception of it. This record was praised for its emotional authenticity and polished production. Metal Injection called it a masterclass in modern metalcore, but some critics did dismiss its lyrical repetitiveness. But fans championed its vulnerability. Mostly positive reviews, some mixed. Rolling Stone Australia called it a defining moment for Australian metalcore. And Sputnik Music, which I always like going to because like when Lizzie was looking up all this stuff for critic reviews, she's like, every website, it's like all their stuff is gone, right? So like you have to either go with the Wayback Machine or like search for it somewhere else, but Sputnik keeps its stuff. But Sputnik also is like harsh. It's like, yeah. So they gave it a 3.7 out of 5. They praised its accessibility, but critiqued its formulaic structure, which I think was a kind of a common thing. But it debuted at number 1 in Australia, number 31 on the US Billboard 200, which was kind of a breakthrough for an Australian artist in the United States. Pittsburgh has surpassed 50 million streams. There are like 3 different versions of this now, I found.
I know.
So there's the original, there's a deluxe, and then there is a redo version that came out last year.
Yeah.
So I guess that's for like the 10-year anniversary, like a remixed, remastered one. I listened to the original, and then I listened to the redo version today, and I was like, I can't really tell a difference, but okay. Like,
I know how much you love reduxes nowadays or reissues.
Okay,
so.
Listen,
I had to get it out of my system.
You know, and I had that like because I saw your review of the Never Take record, and I was like, this is who I'm speaking to, and I'm like, there's people who are like, nah, I'm only going to listen to the original, and I'm gonna be like, I gotta be that guy, and I really like this version, and people are split. The fans are split. People are on both sides of this issue. One guy, a friend of ours, was like, I don't see the point in why these bands have to re-record their material. And I'm like, I kind of wanted to be like, bro, because they wanted to. Like, who cares?
Some of us like it.
Yeah, like whatever. And we talked with Nate, the drummer, and he was like, yeah, we just wanted to do it. We thought it'd be fun to do. We really enjoy working with Maddie, and like we went to the studio and we had a blast like revisiting these songs. And I'm like, in the end, that's it. That's all that matters. It's like you had fun.
Yeah, they're the artists. They're doing what they want to do. I just couldn't leave the conversation without giving you shit at least.
I know. I hate that the record's called Never Take Friendship Personal. So if you disagree on it, it's like, we're going to.
It's so fitting.
We're gonna. I wanted to also, for me, I needed to like kind of see this in context. This record being now 11 years old, 10 years old last year, celebrating that anniversary. What else came out in 2014? Like kind of what was the context of metalcore at that time? Sure. Architects, Lost Forever, Lost Together came out that year. In
Great
Heart's
record.
Wake is another Australian artist. Eco-conscious metalcore is how it was described. They had a record called Earthwalker come out that year. Barry Tomorrow's record Runes came out that year. The Ghost Inside, Dear Youth. These are ones that I have not listened to either. I'm not really...
Right.
I love metalcore, but like my experience is more with some of these other bands on here. Beartooth, Every Time I Die, Issues, Motionless in White, and Of Mice and Men all released albums that year as well. And then I'm coming into this from like the more Bring Me the Horizon side and like the early 2000s or early 2010s like metalcore scene. And this record definitely was at that time when I was like kind of stepping out of that more metalcore side into some other genres, into more of like electronic stuff and all that. But those are definitely some records that I listened to around this time. That Beartooth record I remember was kind of one of the ones that was starting to pull me back in a little bit. And obviously a big year for vulnerability in the artist.
Right. Oh, 100%. Is that the one that had In Between on it and the lines? Do you
Yes.
know? Yeah, no, that's such a great record.
Yeah. Because I remember I listened to the I guess it was kind of an EP. I think a couple of songs made it to Disgusting afterwards,
Hmm.
but I Have a Problem was really the one where I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
there's no more pretense. It is just straight up, this is what's going on. This is my experience. I'm yelling about it. I'm angry about it.
Yeah.
So
Also another artist who struggled with mental health and depression and things like that. But man, we get some. I feel sorry for them for going through that, but we get some great records out of the things that these people go through.
I would never say don't trade it for anything, but at the same
Right.
time, we applaud everybody's journey. We applaud that
Yes.
they can make it out of the darkness, and that they have used the art and the music in order to help get it there, and to hopefully inspire and help some other people to also, make that journey themselves.
We see it in the comments all the time.
Yep.
This record saved my life.
Yep. That is one thing that apparently Pittsburgh, when they play it live, they say that a lot, and they mention how that was the call to arms for most people of like, I'm going to take care of myself, and this record, this album, this song really helped me do that, and I'm glad that Amity Affliction knows that too.
Oh yeah. Pittsburgh, I was probably the song that broke them out too, because I think that was the first time that I heard the band was when Pittsburgh came out and they started playing it on, if even MTV2 was around at the time, or maybe YouTube. I saw it and I was just like, what is this? Like, this is great. And that's what got me into the Amity Affliction. So the fact that a lot of people probably recognize that as their first introduction to the band makes it as big as it is today, because that was all of our introduction to the band. What's interesting about Pittsburgh being the track that got most people into Amity Affliction, or their introduction into the band, is that it's the intro to the album. And in parentheses, a lot of times you'll see Pittsburgh no intro. So I think that was just them like making light of not having some sort of like weird synth starting out the album, or like how a lot of bands will like start out nice and slow and like get into the song, and they just go right into it with Pittsburgh, which is a great start off for the album, because you know what you're getting into when you hear it. They did a good job, I think, on this record, Let the Ocean Take Me, by stacking up a lot of the singles at the front end. And sometimes that can leave something to be desired towards the end, but it's such a short album at like, I think it was 31 or 32 minutes, or excuse me, it was 41 or 42 minutes. And so it's like just the perfect amount of time to get into a record and not have it be too long. When you were saying earlier about Pittsburgh being like that cathartic song, or like a call to arms for a lot of fans when they see it live, I had that experience too, because I have a past with substance abuse, and the things that Joel's singing about in that song, like you referred to with the anxiety and the drinking. When I ended up getting sober, like this was one of the songs that kind of kept me grounded, and like knowing where he's at now and where he came from really helped me. So when I saw it live a few years ago, like it really did have that. I had that same emotional response. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I do think a lot of Amity Affliction fans see it as their call to arms. Yeah, they did a good job at the start of the album with, they've always written great hooks. Songs like Lost and Fading, Don't Lean on Me. Those are, the title of the song is from the chorus. So like Lost and Fading, Don't Lean on Me, The Way Down is all, they've made the title of the song the chorus, but Pittsburgh isn't like that. They don't mention the city of Pittsburgh one time in the song. So I thought that was kind of funny that out of all of their hooks are always the title of the song, except Pittsburgh doesn't even mention the city. It just happens to be where the incident happened.
Not that, I'm used to a lot of bands that are like, our song titles have nothing to do with the actual lyrics in the middle of it. It is,
who would do that?
It is often refreshing to have sort of that balance of like, okay, what is this song about? It is the title. We can remember it. Like I can actually come to one of these conversations and be like, oh, I know what song that is because it's in the chorus and I remember the chorus, versus being
you
like,
know
Pittsburgh,
the words and you're like, I know. Yeah.
It's like fucking Pittsburgh. Like that's not the song. Don't put that in the lyrics.
And like, what song are you gonna write about Pittsburgh anyway? So yeah, they did a great job stacking, like front loading the album basically. But everything on here is, like you mentioned when you were doing a rollout, or the origins of the album, it's all about their mental health and what they've seen in the past. And Amity's always been big about kind of shouting out their local scene or who they grew up with in Australia and the people they were around and other artists. They've all been best friends for a long time and seen a lot of things together, and they share those experiences throughout the record. Things like the band name being based off of one of their friends passing away when he was only 17 years old, like the way down being about this feeling of, so we're bringing the ocean back into it and like we can't swim, we're being weighed down. And just the theme, I just love the theme and how it can be dark in a way, but Aaron's vocals like take it up to where it's like, it doesn't sound sad because he has such that like high tone that it just makes it almost like party music in a way too. Like some metalcore sounds like party music, but you're like, but they're talking about the saddest shit ever. Yeah. But I'm also partying with my friends too. You know the feeling I'm talking about?
You want to like, you know, throw your hands up and sing along, and then you're like, oh fuck, like he's had a hard time, you know?
Yeah,
like, this
exactly.
is talking about me struggling, but also we're all, it's, you know, doing like emo nights and stuff. I always think of it like being in a room singing about the sad shit is a much better way to sort of like experience those moments and kind of have that release of it. Like, yes, it sucks. And yeah, it's sad. And like, hey, at least we can all for like, you know, 3 minutes, we can all yell that like, we have this problem, we're dealing with it, we're all doing our best and we're all here together. And like, I mean, I know that's like most of the record is like songs like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But everybody wants that release. And, you know, I think that's something about our genre and our, you know, the reason that we're here in these places is because we look for that kind of specific release in that way. And it's sad, but you're also like, hey, the only way that I'm going to like be able to process this is the way that they're speaking it to me and the way that I can let that energy out and then go back to the shitty shit after this.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things about metalcore in general is the dynamic between, let's say, cleans and dirties or vocals, and how if you want to express an emotion or an artist wants to express an emotion, they can either do it by singing really high and getting it out, or you can like scream it and do like a guttural if you want. It's all about how you want to express it as a fan and just like get it out of your system, like you said, for that 3 or 4 minutes at a show or at an emo night.
Yeah, and you hit the blah, and you get that, and they get that out. You know, and I like I said, I stopped listening to a lot of metalcore, but now I feel like the blah is like such a meme and an overused thing. Like,
yeah,
people are doing it as a joke. But then listening to this, I was like, well, this was at that time. This was like of the moment, the early days of it. And I was like, okay, this is rad. Like, it hits. It is.
Yeah.
I see why you do it. Like, you know, maybe there's a moment in the studio where you're like, I know this is a heavy record, but right here, I'm going to do this weird ass sound and it's going to hit so hard and everyone's going to do it.
Well, you mentioned Architects earlier. I think Sam Carter was the one that like originated or popularized the blast. So it's fitting that they came out with a record the same year as Amity Affliction.
It's if one band is doing it, everybody kind of ends up doing something a little similar in the scene.
And then it goes in waves where it's like everybody's doing it. Oh, it's too popular now. We got to bring it back down. All right, now it's a meme, so we got to bring it back up and give the people what they want.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is a side note. I'm just gonna like get your take on this. The new Sleep Token song was when I started realizing like I feel like Sleep Token is writing songs for this record for like YouTube or TikTok reactions to them. Like, oh, here's my first reaction to this song. And like, it keeps changing all this stuff and they keep doing weird things every section. And I'm like, it's because like fucking Nick Nocturnal is going to watch this and go, oh, and like, that's what you want. And they get like I looked at like, okay, the song came out 6 hours ago. All of the follow-up videos to it are like Nick Nocturnal, Metal Burb, like all of these guys who are reacting to it. And all of those videos have like 30, 50K views on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the most promotion you're getting is by doing music that constantly is like tickling at the back of your brain and getting these reactors to do it to promote the song. And then I think about like all of these other bands have been doing it over the last couple of years, like the Moancore thing and like,
I remember that.
You know, so all of these bands are kind of just doing something where they're like, this is going to blow one guy's mind on the internet. He's going to post a TikTok about it and it's going to go super viral. And then people will listen to the song. Not a bad idea, but
One hand is shaking the other, and they're like, "We have this deal worked out, guys."
That's what I'm saying. Like, listen, you
Yeah.
get it. But like these are at least like albums from a time when most bands are like, I wasn't thinking about SEO when I wrote this song. I wasn't thinking about
No, this
SEO when I
was
named my band.
well before reaction videos and just straight up. And maybe that's what makes it so good is that it wasn't written with like, all right, we need to introduce this super crazy part that's going to get the internet talking. Like we've lost a time where that wasn't on anybody's mind at all. And to your point, Sleep Token kind of broke out by doing that because if you
Yeah.
remember 2 years ago when that track came out and you had that like that funky jazz thing like right at the end of the song, everybody was like, what is this? And
Yeah.
it has never been the same for that band since then.
Listen, I'm a big fan. I love Sleep Token,
Yeah,
but
same.
I'm aware of the game, I think now. Like the more that
Oh
I do
yeah.
it, the more I can see clearly the game. And then I'm like, okay, in the same sense of like going in waves, the bands now have to do big stuff to work with these guys in the industry to get the attention on the music. And then
Hmm.
there will be bands like, Amity Affliction, who are like, we have a record that's 10 years old. So we can just like benefit off of being the originators of some of this stuff or doing something early enough that like we don't have to play these like weird little tricks and weird little games to do it. We
And they
can write
don't.
songs we like and we can write things that mean something to us. And maybe it doesn't get as much attention. Maybe it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's like, that's okay. When you have a career, you're good. You don't need to like be the
Yeah.
biggest thing on the top of the mountain.
When they started out, they probably never, and I'm not saying this for Amity Affliction, but like most metalcore bands, they probably don't picture themselves as being the biggest band in the scene. Like maybe they have aspirations for that, but they know that there's a process to it and a grind to it. They also have all of this art that they just need to get out into the world and they're meeting up with their friends and writing music. And that is the cathartic part of it. I'm sure in the back of their minds, they want to be this huge touring band and make money. Who wouldn't want that? But when you start to be calculated about it,
Mm.
that's when you probably lose some of that creativity that you brought into it to begin with. And maybe it doesn't become fun anymore when you're only thinking about the algorithm or who's reacting to what. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. That'll be a talk for us on the algorithm later.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you my overall thoughts on this record.
Mm-hmm.
Because being my first time listening to it, and I gave it like a few good listens because I wanted to come to this conversation,
Yes.
knowing a lot. And this was not a hard listen at all. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the album. It really brought me back to like that early 2000s metalcore that I don't listen to very often anymore. And I have bands like Bring Me the Horizon that I always revisit, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always happy to go back to some of that stuff. So I did enjoy this. I liked it. I really enjoy the Amity Affliction's use of synths. I am a big like I used to be in a metalcore band and I was like
Mm-hmm.
producing all the synths and like I was like into EDM. So I'm like, nah, I'm doing fucking dubstep. I don't care. It's gonna go in this song. And I really liked how they did it here. Some moments it like sounded almost like Japanese metal to me or Japanese like
Oh,
synths and
shit.
anime synths. There's like a lot of
Yeah.
really cool keyboard parts, a lot of really cool like modulations in the music. I think the song Death's Hand like really like stuck out to me right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ooh, I really like what they're doing here. I will say this, I tend to lean towards bands that are more metaphorical. I tend to lean towards bands
Mm-hmm.
that are more like not so just direct about their lyrics. I think on first listen, I did the research after the first listen. So I listened just completely dry and I'm like, what do we got here? Okay, I know that they're talking about mental health. I know they're talking about alcoholism. I know they're talking about this stuff. And in many ways it's very similar to a lot of other metalcore, very similar to a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
bands that I listen to. At the same time, there's something different I think about the way they do it. It's not so easy. It's not so like just base level, right? It's like while the lyrics are not like super metaphorical or super off, in some very introspective way, it is something that is for an audience that just needs to hear like this is what's up. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
experiencing. There's no sugarcoating it. It sucks. And here is what we want to do about it. And here's what we need to keep moving. We need to keep going forward. And then after doing all the research, I'm like, okay, it's doing that in a way that is good and doesn't sound easy or lazy. It sounds like we put our heart into this and we didn't want to make it this other like big art project type thing. We wanted to make it very, I guess, easy consuming. It's easy to listen to it on the first time and go, I know what this is, I know what it's about, and I know what they're going through. I think it also helps that, like, it sounds really good. All the music sounds really good. I like the guitar work. I like the breakdowns. I like Joel's voice. I like his screams quite a bit. I'll get to it a little bit later, but I also listen to a lot of bands that are like, these like prolific singers like Circus Survive and Chiodos and Coheed and Cambria, and I'm like, I want to hear like all that like crazy work. Dance Gavin Dance too. I know you've been doing a lot on Dance Gavin Dance recently, but I do like all the different vocalists in that. Like, they got all these runs and all that. And I was like, this vocalist is a little bit like kind of just one note and a little bit easy on his vocals. The choruses are really catchy. It's just that there's like not a lot in the variety of his vocals. But I don't think it's like a real big detractor. It's like,
correct, yeah.
When you are hearing a band for the first time, sometimes you go, this is what they are as a package. It's not for me. But hearing this in the sense of like, this is what this package is. If one thing doesn't meet like all my other expectations for other bands, it's like, yeah, that's okay. Like everything else here is working very well. And so this package just has one thing different, and let me understand why it is like that and why it's different that way. So it's like a critique, but it's also like, no, it's different. And it's not like what I normally listen to. So let me like understand like what's going on with his vocals and the melody lines and the balance there. Also, these bands, when they're like 16 and they're singing all these high notes, and then they grow up and they're like, I can't do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe it wasn't a bad idea to like keep it easy vocally so that you can keep doing it well into your 40s and 50s.
Yeah, you have to. I like how you mentioned the production of it too, and especially the synths, because that is something that stood out to me when I re-listened to it recently. I listened to it a couple times this week in preparation as well, and I was like, oh, this is a lot more electronic than I remember it being. And around, obviously the crabcore stuff in 2008 and 2009 like really skyrocketed that, which was great. This was still maintaining that, 5 or 6 years later, and not having it be like too familiar with that 2008, 2009 crabcore stuff. And I think they did it in a really good way, like you mentioned. And with Will Putney working on it, it's no wonder that the production level is so high and it sounds so good. Yeah.
We Came as Romans is a band that I never really listened to either. And I listened to one of their albums earlier this year. I thought we were going to do it for another review. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to push that back a little bit. We'll get back to it. But like they were also a band where I'm like, there's a lot more of that electronic flourishes here. That's a Joey Sturgis band. So like, of course, everything that Joey Sturgis did is like techno breakdown. I don't know. Fuck it. Like,
yeah, the legend, Joey Sturgis.
I have nothing wrong to say about any of his records. I'm like, I don't care how like cringe it is looking back at it. Like there's some attack shit that I'm like, I will listen to this constantly. I don't care. There's some Devil Wears Prada stuff that I'm like, this is maybe some of the best music I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, really?
I'm glad we have a similar ear. He's a pioneer, and I loved when that breakout of the electronics started and the techno breakdown like you're talking about. My favorite genre in time of music, probably.
Yeah. And I think that Amity Affliction, the way that they integrated it, it brings me back to those moments. It brings me back to more of that Joey Sturgis style. But here, there's like the, sort of stringy keyboards happening over a breakdown. It's like perfect. Always good. Always going to make me smile. Always going to make me nod my head, give a little chin move.
How about in re-listening, I remembered that they actually had like a chorus, or I should say like a choir on Pittsburgh at the end of the song. And I was like, who brings a choir into a metalcore song anymore? Like, we need some more of this.
We got to bring it back. We got to do it. Yeah, there was a lot of really cool stuff on here with that. There were a lot of songs that started off with like the synth. I feel like maybe it was "Don't Lean on Me" that kind of starts with like more of like a Bring Me the Horizon is such a like prolific band in that way that I'm like everything kind of just refers back to Bring Me the Horizon, not in a negative way. Like they pioneered so much shit. So kudos to that. But I think it was "Don't Lean on Me" that kind of starts with that like sort of synthy like guitar and it kind of brings it in and has a sort of like mystical, like ethereal, a lot of the water themes and all of that, and it feels like you're like staring at a body of water and it's all like coming in, building up. And there's a lot of that on this album. It may be formulaic. I'm also like, yeah, I don't care. Like that's good. You know,
Yeah.
it's formulaic because it was good and it's good every time.
Yes. If that's something that they do right, it is having that formula and having these like the great hooks. And if having great hooks is a formula, like you have dirty vocals, you have clean vocals that have a great hook behind it, I'm here for that formula if that's
Yeah.
what it is, because that's what I love. So they have perfected it, and they really perfected it on this album.
Well, let's talk some tracks. What would you say is like one of your top tracks on this record?
So we've already beaten Pittsburgh to death because it's their most played song of all time and their best track. But I would say if I had to pick like it's not even a sleeper track, but my next favorite track on here, it's Never Alone, because I love the message behind the song. The chorus is never alone, never apart. We found each other in the dark. And it makes me think of relationships, and it makes me think whether it's a best friend or your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, like you always have somebody there for you, whether you know it or not. And it just keeps you moving forward, knowing that you have somebody who has your back or to do something by your side. And every time I hear that song, I think of my wife and how we go through life together. I'm never alone. And it just is one of those songs that like gives me goosebumps or makes me emotional. So that is whenever it comes on, my favorite sleeper track from the album. The other one is My Father's Son, which, is probably not one of their most streamed songs, but the message behind that song is talking about how as you get older in life, you realize that you're more like your dad or your parents than you may have thought you were, because you see some of yourself in them or themselves in you. And as I've gotten older, I've listened to that song and be like, oh yeah, my dad does have these tendencies or these, mannerisms that I'm starting to see in myself. And I just thought that My Father's Son was really good. That song takes on a little bit of more of a darker tone because maybe his father, was interested in other things, but I definitely is another one of those songs that no one's ever going to be like partying to a song about how you have your father's tendencies in your life. But when it comes on for me, I see a little bit of myself in it and really enjoy that one.
Those two songs, I'm like, these are the ones that are very on the nose, right? There is no, there's no metaphor. It's just like, this is a song about generational trauma and how the way that my father was is the way that I was. And like, we share a lot in the DNA and the way that I was raised and the way that like I experienced my life and the way he experienced his. I just like, I'm not mad about it, I guess. Like, it's okay that it's like on the nose. That like, I also think that My Father's Son has like some of the more like heavy breakdowns on this. Like, I'm no stranger to rage was like, okay, like we better rage then, like hit me with something.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, like this is the angry song, right? The other songs are more like, I'm hopeful. Never Alone is more like, let's, as a community come together. Let's as people come together. Let's as, everybody in my life, like we share in this together. And it's like, that's uplifting. And that's like that moment. I think that's the one that also has like that spoken word, like voicemail part at the end of it.
Oh yeah. That's good. Yeah.
And I didn't, normally I'd be like, all right, that's a little cringe. And then this one I was like, nope, that's kind of hitting. Like I like
like, dang man.
Yeah, I like the way they did it. And it added something else to this record that I'm like, that's really good. And then you get to My Father's Son and you're like, okay, we have come together. We are together. We understand that. Let's just fucking like get into the pit. Let's just throw elbows and just have a good time, because now we're mad about the shit that got us here, and we're gonna come together later. But like right now, like it's time.
Exactly.
It's time.
Exactly.
So I really I agree. Like both of those songs like really caught me. The Way Down though was probably the one that stuck out to me the most on like repeat listens. I like the use of like the way down as like a weight, but also obviously like, that you're on that path down and you feel like you constantly are going down and there's a weight that's carrying you there. The obviously water metaphor and the ocean metaphor, but I liked this chorus a lot. I liked the way that it had that formula of the cleans and the dirty vocals, but sort of like classic metalcore and classic lyrics and classic choruses. So that's one that stuck out to me for the most part. FML was the other one that I was like, yo, like this is also really good.
FML's great.
Yeah, I think that one had the sense that I was like, yeah, I want to copy that. Like, like that's the kind of stuff that I'd be like, yeah, let's do that.
I think the chorus in Way Down may be their best chorus that they've ever written, just because of you mentioned the metaphor, but also like the way that they string together different meanings of a word. Just Aaron's highs on that are so good. It's so catchy. Like these guys know how to write a hook, and that might be one of their best ones. So I'm glad you shouted that one out because it is a great track and a great hook.
They, like I said, they don't really do a lot of those like the lyrical tricks on it. They don't do a lot of metaphor, but like the combination of I think it's if this record is talking about a journey, and this record is talking about the antagonist of the ocean and the antagonist of like this endless sea of depression or anxiety or unsurmountable obstacles, and they're like, yeah, we don't need to really like put a lot of other metaphor. Like the record is a metaphor, it's a journey, and now we're like, but here's like that specific part of the journey where now we're actually succumbing to it, we're actually going into it, and it's not just a weight, it is like this is a journey into darker and darker and deeper, and we're taking you now into like the bad shit and the bad place. I'm like, okay, now the lyrics are starting to feel like, while they are, pretty on the nose and pretty like I don't want to say one dimensional in a negative way. It isn't actually like, it actually does a good job of sort of balancing that line of like, you don't need to think too much about it, but if you do, there's something there to grab onto and have some different look at it. If you are listening to it again, if you are like reading the lyrics separately, there's more to grab onto.
Oh, wait till you hear about what they think about lakes.
We got a smaller body of water now.
Yeah, we went from the ocean to lakes.
Our next river is our next album is called Tributary.
They've done on the last record, something about the bottom of the well. So every time they make a record, the body of water just keeps getting smaller and smaller and deeper.
You're in my sink.
Like, yeah, that's going to be the next one.
Is there any other songs you want to shout out?
We talked about all of the front-loaded part of the album, which is great. I think Pittsburgh, Lost and Fading, Don't Lean on Me, The Way Down, Never Alone, and Death's Hands, all of those to me could stand out as singles, and maybe one is not better than the other, depending on what mood you're in. So just the first half of the album to me is just flawless metalcore. I think it's so great. And I mentioned the runtime of the album earlier too, at 42 minutes. Is there a better runtime for an album than fucking 42 minutes? Like, it's not too long. It's not too short. It's just right prime territory, I feel like.
Listen, I agree. As somebody, we talked about Sleep Token. I mentioned Coheed. It's like, obviously I like long songs. I like them when they have substance to it. So if there's good breakdowns, if there's good guitar work, if there's good synth work, if there's sections of the song where it's like we're doing something different lyrically here, or I don't like bridges that don't need to be there. I don't like stuff taking too long and just sort of like overstaying its welcome.
Yeah.
If there's like good hooks, get the hooks in and move on. We don't need to keep hearing it. Or a friend of mine was like, The Best of Me is one of the greatest songs ever written because it's like 4 choruses. It's like, just, we know the chorus is good. We're just going to do the chorus a bunch of times.
Hey, do that chorus some more. That's pretty good.
It's a good chorus. Sing it like 100 times. Play the song twice. Just let everybody enjoy every moment of that chorus.
Let's even end on a chorus too. It's just one of those long drawn out, like, best of me. Just draw it out as long as you can.
Exactly. They know what they have. So I agree. I do think that I like it short. I like it around 40 minutes because I do think that now we're also like we're hitting a little bit of the opposite end of it. This record came out long enough ago where they weren't worried about streaming numbers. They weren't worried about algorithms and all that. So they're making a record that has the runtime that it needs to say what it needs to say. I like some shorter stuff. I like some catchy stuff, but I'm also like, let's give the audience something they can really sink into. Not to use the water metaphor again, but
you did it. You're a true Amity Affliction fan now.
I get it, man. Listen, Australia's surrounded by water. I get it.
Yeah, and they've said that before. They were like, dude, we live near the water. Like, what do you want from us? Yeah, the run times, I think, have actually overcorrected themselves because now we're seeing 28, 29, 30-minute albums. Yeah. And I'm like, I think the Architects album was really short. Linkin Park's most recent record was really short. And I was like, you kind of left me wanting more on this one, guys. Like, come on. Like, I don't want an hour and a half, but I don't want half an hour.
They're thinking like, well, in 2 months the deluxe edition will come out, and just you wait.
Oh,
it's like, no, man.
Here we go.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Unfortunately, I'm always like, I have a sneaking suspicion there's like another reason behind this, and like we used to just put out records and go, this is the record. Like the deluxe maybe comes out. I know there was a deluxe edition of this. I did not listen to that one or the extra tracks on that one. So,
interestingly enough, I'm looking at it too, and I don't know if I've heard those tracks. I got to go find those because I wonder if they fit in well with the rest of the album.
Yeah,
Skeletons and Farewell.
Yeah, I know Skeletons had a little bit of attention on it from what I was seeing. Like they kind of were like, promoting the deluxe edition with it. But yeah, I tend to, when I do these reviews, I'm like, what was the original thing? Like, what was the build up? What was the record you went in to write? What did it look like in that original packaging to the fans? And like when the fans got it in their hands, like these are the songs that we're connecting to. These are the songs that we're attached
100%.
to. And you put out the deluxe version, you're like, yeah, all right. Like those weren't on the original, whatever.
Yeah. Well, we didn't hear this till months or years later, so it doesn't really resonate with me the same that it would be if it was on the record originally.
Yeah. The only record that has ever done that differently for me is Say Anything's Is a Real Boy, where the second part of it that came out is like almost as good as the first part. And it's like a bunch of songs that I'm like, yeah, these should be played live. These should be played, with all this stuff.
And it's hard to replicate that if you're a band, is to put out something in a deluxe edition and have people resonate that well with it. That is very rare. And Say Anything is a rare band, so it makes sense.
Very rare band. Love them to death. Love that band so much. But being a fan of Say Anything it's you take what you get. You've
had some ups and downs. Yeah.
I mean, you're probably right there experiencing the same stuff.
You're
watching Max go through it, and you're like, "Thank you, Max, for writing out what I needed to hear." I am a teenage white male, and I needed to hear this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're underrepresented. That's the problem.
You know what? Honestly, I've been saying this. We'd be better if we had more music that really spoke directly to us, and we could see ourselves reflected in it.
No shortage.
Now, I know this is a record you love. This is one of your favorite records, as I think you said at the beginning. Do you have any spicy takes about this? Is there anything that you think like you got a hot take on this album that maybe other people would disagree with you on?
Oh, that's a good question. And I know that I was even supposed to be thinking about that ahead of time. Let's see. A spicy take about this record. I might have to disappoint you on this one because short of the album artwork being the most weird clip art pasted people standing in the water by the cliff and this guy's just falling forward into the water, I don't have a lot of hot takes when it comes to the actual track layout. Like I said, I think it's a little front loaded. But if I were to re-listen to Forest Fire and Give It All, which are the last two tracks on here, I'd probably hear them and be like, oh yeah, I remember these are good, but they don't stand out to me. And so when a band front loads an album, I think it's great because you're in it so hard for like 25, 30 minutes, but it usually ends up petering off till the end of the album. I don't think this one did that, but if I could not sing the chorus of those two songs based off of just me looking at the titles of them. So maybe like, balancing out the album a little bit more and having some of those, maybe Never Alone, which is such like an emotional, or My Father's Son be the closer track. And I know that sounds so cliche, but just kind of like putting that more on the nose emo stuff towards the end of an album, which most people usually do, probably would have resonated a little more. But no, I don't have a lot of, for full disclosure, I think the Amity Affliction is currently my favorite band, even though they just lost my favorite member of the band. So I don't have a lot of critiques for it just because I do love it so much. It's one of my favorite records.
It's one of the problems of when I'm like, you recommend a record and it's like, I love this record, so I will not have anything negative to say about it.
You're going to get me to say something bad about the Amity Affliction? Are you kidding me? No.
I mean, yeah. And for me, I'm like, that's the shit that like goes viral, but also like, it's because I like think it, like I have an authentic take on it.
I literally just like listened to it when I was working out this morning too, and I was listening. I was like, "Is there anything that I don't like about this besides like maybe like I said, some of the songs aren't singles, but that's every album. Like, it's mostly To be honest, the part that I hate about bringing up this album is how much I actually like care about the band and like loved them as a cohesive unit of Joel and Aaron together. Those guys are almost the same but opposite in the same way. Like Joel was a big drinker, got sober. Aaron was a big partier and got sober. These guys came up partying and being together all of the time and having that life together. And for one of them to get sober, I'm sure that that changes the band dynamic some. I don't know that to be a fact, but you have to imagine that some of that led to Aaron leaving that tour last year. And when I revisited this album and remembered the good times of the band, that's the part that bummed me out, was knowing that we may never get this version of the band again. And it's a bummer, dude. Like, I hate knowing that. And Aaron's working on new music and might have something coming out here in the future, but it's never going to be the same again. And as we get older, we have to deal with that fact more and more with so many bands.
The relationships aspect of all of it. Like I have told too many bands recently that I'm looking for something to fill the "every time I die" shaped hole in my heart, because it's like, you grow up in that band, you grow up and you are experiencing, I mean, bands are touring all the time. There's a lot of alcohol around, there's a lot of partying. It's supposed to be like a fun thing. Most of these guys are like kids. They're like 20 years old as they're going out, and you're getting exposed to everything. And it's like, well, once you realize you can't do that anymore because it's not really good. It's not like a positive thing to do all the time, and it's unhealthy. And then it's like, well, the reason that this is happening is because I'm doing this music. Like, I'm doing the tour, I'm doing the shows. And if I stop doing that, I might want to stop touring. I might want to stop doing the shows. And I think a lot of people, a lot of artists are saying like, hey, I don't want to tour anymore. Like, I don't want to do that part of it. I'm happy if the rest of the band wants to go. I know a few bands are like the guys in the band write the music with them, but they're like, you guys go and do the tour if you want to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it usually comes down to who is singing, and that's pretty much it.
You may have come across this when you were doing your research for the Amity Affliction, but that was one of the reasons why Aaron left, is because he wasn't interested in doing these big tours anymore, coming over to the US constantly, and wanted to be at home and write music. And so that was one of the reasons why they ended up breaking up. So whether you knew that or not, you're spot on, where these guys, like, as you get older, man, who wants to be on the road when you're in your 40s and 50s, especially if you live in a different continent? You know, it becomes tough as you get older.
Unless you're making like Rolling Stones money, it's like you can't.
Well,
if you're like making a ton of money and you can basically fly to every show, and like you're not like constantly in the back of a bus for years on end for most of the year. I mean, it definitely is something where if you can have people with you, like I know some people tour with like their families, and they've got the people in the van with them and all that, or if they're like got a really good crew around them. I think a lot of artists are doing more like solo stuff now, because they're like, I can just kind of run it all on my own. If I don't want to tour, I don't tour. If I just want to do like a small group of shows, I can do that. I think that's kind of the way the industry is moving, because these artists are realizing like, I don't need to sacrifice my own happiness or my own passion for this art that I'm creating just to be able to make a living off of it. If I, like, what's the point of getting most of us feel this at our regular day job. It's like, what's the point of like working just to have, 5 minutes at the end of the day where it's like, well, at least I can like, buy a nice meal or whatever. It's like, no, we should be working to live and not living to work, basically, or however the direction goes. And I do think that bands are like, I'm kind of just working to live,
And the unfortunate part is that being on the road is one of the last ways, besides maybe online merch, is one of the last ways that they can make good money. And then being on the road and selling merch and things like that, the actual art itself through streaming isn't making as much money as it should have, as it should be, but that's a different conversation.
And I do want to agree with you about the album cover, because it's every album cover from like the early 2010s is like, here's a metalcore record. And it's like the same idea of doing like I didn't watch the Pittsburgh video for this, and I probably should have, but I did see like the thumbnail and all that, and I'm like, oh, it's guys in a room, it's raining and they're getting wet and they're wearing white t-shirts, and I'm like, that could be like 5 other bands that did it at the exact same time. I feel like at the time I was like, we got to do something different. Like we got to stop doing all the same thing. And now I look back at it and I'm like, oh, like we need to rent out a warehouse and like a trash can I can put my foot up on.
If we knew how good we had it back then, we want all of our bands playing in warehouses and fields now. It's like, we're just bringing it back to us. We actually miss it. Who are these people standing in the water? Like, I didn't even realize that there was like these hooded men that are like flanking the coast here. And it just looks like they've photoshopped like it double-sided on this. So yeah, that could use a touch up, but it's a classic album art cover. Like when you see this, you know exactly what you're getting into. So you can't deny that.
It describes the mood of the record perfectly, but it is like, all right, again, I mean, my only real take on this is the only like minor criticisms I have of it is like, it is a little on the nose. It's a little bit, you know, there's no metaphor, there's no pretense. It's just, this is what it is what you're getting. You look at the album cover, you listen to it, you're like, yep, this is exactly what I thought I was going to get. The sound wise, the lyric wise, all of that. And Aaron's vocals to me, you know, they're a little easy, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in the context of the whole band. But yeah, I didn't really have too much spicy to say about this one either, to be honest. Like I enjoyed it.
It's pretty straightforward, honestly.
Yeah. I don't think it's safe to do something either like that. Like if it's easy, that doesn't mean that's necessarily safe in a realm in which you are competing with a lot of people who are doing all kinds of things. And there's so much room in the genre for everything. You know, I have this theory that's like every permutation has to exist. So there has to be a band that is doing the sort of like simple thing very, very well. And that simple thing is not bad. It just is something that they're creating for this audience. And ideally they find an audience for it and it gets them to a level where they're sustainable and they're like able to play these songs out. And that doesn't make it a bad thing. It just makes it them. It makes Amity Affliction what Amity Affliction is.
Yep, they perfected that in a way on this album. And as far as you were saying, it went #1 or gold in Australia. They were already a big band in Australia, and this just brought that level of popularity to the United States. And maybe they had to do something like this in order to bring that mainstream success over to this side of the world, you know?
That's all I've got to say about it. Is there any other last thoughts you have on this record?
No, I think I'm good on this. I'm really interested to see the direction that the band goes now that Aaron has left and Aaron will be working on his own project. And yeah, it's unfortunate to see him have to go this way, but I'm glad that we have this record and I'm glad that it's still a scene favorite. I'm glad that you got to listen to it for the first time and like enjoy it. And I implore you to take on some of their other records. I would go to the album before this, Chasing Ghosts. Definitely check that one out because this is like that's a precursor to this one, and I think I might even like that one a little bit better than this one. And then if you like the synths and the electronic vibe, you might really like Misery by them because people were giving them a lot of shit for going too electronic on that album. So if you want too much electronics, then you should check that one out.
That appeals to the contrarian in me. Where
you're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, we don't like it. It's too electronic. Like, give me that.
And you're like, yes. Yes, please.
If you don't like this, I'll have more for me.
You'll segue us into the next segment, but I actually love contrarian takes. And so you being a contrarian on things like, for example, the Anberlin Never take, that's what makes the scene fun, dude. I don't want everybody to like the same shit, man. So like, give me the fucking contrary takes because it spices up my life.
It's, who really appreciates the contrarian takes is the bands that I am contrarian about. They really appreciate. I think that the bands tend to be a little bit more isolated to the negativity because people want to be like a little glazy and they want to like say, hey, I want to work with you and all this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, this didn't work for me. But, I'm not like, if you write something that I don't like, it's like, yeah, I didn't like that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm one guy and, I'm still buying tickets to the show. I'm still listening to the record. I'm still buying t-shirts. Like, I didn't like that one part. It's not like that you should be mad at me forever. Like I just didn't like that.
Not only that, but I'm talking about it.
Yeah, like I'm having a conversation. Yeah. But I mean, we've had a bunch of people who were like more interested in talking to us because we said something that was not just this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. I love it. Like you're an amazing artist. Like we took the time, we listened to it, we gave it like our honest, authentic thoughts. And they were like, oh my God, that's refreshing. So Matt, where can people find you on the internet? Where can they follow you? Where can they check out your content?
All right. You can find me on TikTok or Instagram at Real Matt Bunting. If you want to learn about new bands, you want to learn scene lore or band history, that's my favorite videos to make, is that evergreen content about the scene that we grew up in. I just did a 7-part series on Dance Gavin Dance because somehow they started blowing up on TikTok out of nowhere. And I was like, oh yeah, let me look into them a little bit and remember what that lore was like. And we went down a crazy journey with that. So people really enjoyed that series, but I love breaking out new artists too, if I can help do that and talk about some of my favorite artists from the early 2000s or mid 2000s. So yeah, you can find me at Real Matt Bunting on almost every platform.
And if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, Matt and I are going to do an interview you'll be the inaugural guest on the new podcast that I'm launching on here. I Want to Eat Your Brains and Gain Your Knowledge. This is content creation, talking about the music industry, talking about exactly what you do on TikTok, and talk about this lore and having those conversations on the internet and sort of bringing in a little bit of the content creator side of this to the conversation. So if you're watching this, if you're listening, yeah, go check that out. It's on the Emo Social Club channels, and go follow Matt, go learn about Dance Gavin Dance. And definitely, if you're into music discovery, Matt is one of the best resources for new bands, old bands you might have never heard. You got me to listen to the Amity Affliction, so it's working.
Let's go. I'm doing my job.